Good evening. I want to talk about in this short video from an article of Robertson and Larson entitled Say and Do. And in this article, it seems as if the writers are trying to convey a message about presenting a good sermon that functions out of a good start with what they call a form. And so they're trying to get us engaged on how to choose a sermon form that helps the hearers to experience the truth. And in other words, the form of the sermon has to complement the total expectation of what you want the congregants and or hearers to receive. And now, so in this, they talk about the sermon form, and they said that it should be congenial, which simply means to be suitable to the text, and not only suitable to the text, but your sermon form needs to be suitable to the message of the sermon, and then lastly, it needs to be suitable to the experience to be created. And so let's talk about that just for just a brief moment here. That if your form is not suitable to the text, then it starts off on a rocky road, right? And so because the end result is for us to provide the experience of the things that we're talking about, we're moving or attempting to move our congregation or our listeners from text to application. And so sermon form, according to Robinson and Larson, is very important in this process. They quoted that, and I quote, they made this statement, I quote, the key to having an effective sermon form is to know what you want to say before you start working it into a sermon. And that's a very important aspect or piece to the sermon, because if you don't know what you want to say or trying to convey, then sometimes we may put it in the wrong sermon form and create more tension down the road in your sermon preparation. And so they made a suggestion that maybe we should try to do this one or two things. They said that we should kind of alleviate our studying to get a message out of the preparation phase of preparing the message. And I can understand that, because if we're studying to get a message, what we're doing is just throwing some ideas from the text together, and we're seeing how they work and how they play together, versus putting them in the preparation form. Because when you put it in preparation, you're kind of locking yourself in to the ideas, and if your ideas are off, I like to say all the time, if your hermeneutics is off, then your homiletics will suffer. And I agree, but if you eliminate that process of trying to study for a sermon versus studying for a sermon and or including the preparation period in there, then you can't challenge yourself with questions. And because you're able to do that, they leave this question that you can ask yourself. Now, as a result of what I've studied from this text, then next step I want to know is, how can I get this message across? How can I convey this message? What form do I need to put this message in so that it'll have a better effect? I think all of those things challenge us to really pay close attention to the form that we're attempting to use when we're trying to build our sermon. Because again, I say the sermon needs to provide the experience of the things that we're talking about. And so what is your sermon talking about is key, and that's the overall principle or the final point that I think we're trying to get to. And so our authors in this short couple page article, they're just really trying to get us engaged in understanding that even though we use scripture, and there are a plethora of scriptures that can fit here and fit there, that a form in a sermon is very, very important. Putting those scriptures in the right form so that they can complement the text, complement the overall goal, and that is to get people to experience what you're really talking about. How can I take 2,000 plus year old words off the text and then implement it in my life? And so the starting point has to start with the form on how we're going to get those results in the end. And so again, a short article, but it's just instructing us to choose a sermon form that's going to help us, that's going to eliminate a lot of strenuous work down the road in our sermon preparation. Thank you.